She's not happy that I am standing here. It's okay. This spring was busy and rainy and busy and rainy and weedy.
Teeny tiny tuber with a teeny tiny sprout. Can you even see it? It's just a baby.
Hey friends, it is Brittany here with Green Bee Flowers. If you are new to our channel, we are a 5th year, 2.5 acre cut flower farm and boutique floral shop located in small town Southwestern Ontario, Canada. You can support our channel by liking our content and subscribing. If you would like more flower farming content, please consider becoming a member of our channel. Proceeds from memberships help to support our farm and family directly. It's been a while. It's the end of July now, and I finally feel like we're kind of caught up enough that I've got some time to actually do some filming. So today, I want to talk about our dahlias. We started planting our dahlias back in May. So once we got through the Mother's Day madness, we actually got about 7,000 tubers in the ground. And you can see here, this is the field. So we're gonna go back, we're gonna go through that footage so you can see the process of how we got our dahlia tubers in the ground. Now, I would like to note, this was all done by hand and a lot of willpower and a lot of Gatorade. Next year, and I think I talked about this in some of the clip footage that you're gonna see, we are actually going to be planting our dahlias the long way. For a couple different reasons. The first is that we'll be able to go through with a machine tractor next year to weed. Right now, this has all been done by hand by our staff, by Nick's aunt, and by my husband. I've been spending a lot more time in the shop the last couple weeks, so I haven't been out at the farm as much as I would like to. However, they have done a great job now of getting all of the straw on so that as our dahlias are starting to grow up, the weed control is down, which is the most important part of our dahlia growing process. Well, it's Dahlia Day, which means that we're loading Aunt T's truck back up. Again, she brings them all to the cooler in the fall and back to the farm in the spring. I think we're just over a third of the way through the dahlias. It honestly could be a little further than that because our big, like the dahlias that we have the most stock of, things like the Boom Boom Whites and Blizzard and Cafe Olay and the Cornell series dahlias, those are now in the ground. This is a lot of work. Nick is back there trenching. This year, I think this will be the last year we're doing this by hand. But the reason we're doing it by hand this year is because we're still kind of moving into this section of the field, and they are still going to be spraying Roundup for certain types of weeds, right, like next to us here. So like where we are, this is our like marker line, and then everything on that side is still going to be beans. So we're trying to be really conscientious about the fact that, you know, if we do have a little bit of spray that ends up on the dahlia leaves, then at least we're not going to lose an entire like full vertical row this way. However, next year we'll probably be able to put the dahlias in the long rows because we'll have plans to move in a little further again. So we won't have the same issue, which is good. It's a lot. And just to give you an idea, I'm gonna walk to the end of what we've already planted. You know, bearing in mind, right, at the old farm, the Green Door Gardens plot, she had 4 beds that were about 70 feet by 35 feet. So we are running beds that are about 31, 32-ish feet vertical, like this way, and then going all the way down. So it's gonna be to be a big dahlia patch this year, but I mean, we have 200, 300 feet worth of dahlias, we figure, that are going to be going in. And I think we're at about 140 feet right now. So it's a task. Now, I know I will get this question, so I'll just go ahead and answer this now. How do we set up our fields? So we do, first of all, everything this year is alphabetical. And each one of our rows, so these stakes are going to be the start of each one of our rows. So it'll be row 1, side A, side B. And then as we go down, we have markers on the ground, so the green flag tags are where the different varieties start. Every single one of our rows here are 3 feet wide. Basically, we plant the dahlias about 4 to 6 inches inside on either one of these posts, so they kind of, so you can see where the trench marks are. And then in the center, so where the pink flagging tape is where the drip line is going to run down the center of that row. We will start getting that hooked up next week. And then what Caitlin's going to go through is oh my gosh, words. Whew, start that again. What Caitlin is going to do is label the front of each one of these so that we can be like, oh, the A's are here, the B's are here, the C's are here, so that when you're going through and cutting dahlias, and we need specific varieties like, you know, cafe au laits or whatever for florists, we can just be like, hey, you're going to go to this row. And then we'll have a master list in the greenhouse, and they can just like flip through and look and see what they need to cut. There's a lot of itemizing and organizing happening on the farm this year, just to set us up for years future. So Caitlin's been doing all of the master organization, because she's probably the only one here that has the patience to actually do it. And so she's basically been going through and setting the dahlias up kind of in order of planting and making sure everybody's kind of together. And then as the trenches are dug, I'm going through laying the tubers and then covering them as well. So dahlia planting's a thankless job. It's probably the hardest marathon of the season, and it sucks that this year it's right after Mother's Day. How tired are you, Caitlin?
Exhausted.
She's been working. She worked Mother's Day and then Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday. So this is her last day. And then what are you doing this weekend?
I have a concert.
We're now on the third day and hopefully the last day of doing our dahlias, putting our dahlias in the ground. We're on the L's and there's only like 12 crates left to go. And I'm actually not too upset about the rain. McKenna was just saying how much she hates like the feeling of like the wet fabric, but I will take this over the heat from the last 2 days anytime. It's be worse if we were planting seedlings right now, because then obviously it would just be like filthy. I mean, it's filthy anyways, but at least the dahlias, like, you're trenching them and you're not like crawling through the dirt. Yeah. We have to get them in because we are expecting a heat wave to come through next week, which means that I don't want the dahlias, like I don't want to be planting the dahlias in 28-degree weather again like we did last year. That was awful, and a huge reason I think why they were so delayed to begin with, because a lot of the sprouts had died off. Now, that said, because we're expecting a heat wave, these are going to be done probably next week. The anemones will likely recover and they will still go, because anemones tend to be a little, you know, more heat hardy than ranunculus, but you can already see, like, Caitlin came through this side yesterday and picked it pretty thoroughly, but we're likely going to be, there's not a lot of like new buds coming off, and we're starting to get to the point with the ranunculus too where they're just aborting the buds because they're mad and it's too warm for them. So probably by the end of next week, this first succession that we put in, you know, late January, early February this year is going to be coming out. And then we are going to be putting in all of the propagate dahlias here. So this way we can keep better track of what dahlias I propagated, because every year the issue is that we try to plant them in the field with the rest of the dahlias, and you know, they're just either not properly labeled or somebody gets messed up along the way. So this way we can just, you know, make sure they're in a covered area where water isn't going to like wash their labels off, and then hopefully we'll get the labeling right on that. It is preferable. It was very hot planting the last couple days, and we have to have a good, so McKenna's just covering tubers right now, and Nick is wearing a plastic bag. We're doing the Niagara Falls way. We did it. I think that was a lot of tubers. It's like almost 300 feet of dahlia in. It's a lot of dahlia. But this section here of the field is gonna look so good in a couple months. But like, that's a really long ways away. I think we need to invest in like a golf cart or something for the farm now, because it's getting a little ridiculous. And I am purchasing walkie-talkies too, because we can no longer comfortably yell at each other from one end of the farm to the other. Darn. They're all in. Oh. Honestly, yeah, we're gonna use a tractor next year. But it was really nice that the weather cooperated for us today. It could have been, if it was hot, there's no way we would have gotten, you know, 16 crates of dahlia in. And there's a few varieties that we had so many of that we sent the extra tubers to the store, and we are going to run a sale on those from the long weekend until probably the end of June. At that point it'll be a bit too late for people to put the dahlia in. So yeah, so we're looking good here at the farm. End of our 7,000 dahlias, we actually have probably 2,500, give or take, sunflowers planted at the end of that row. So next year, because we're always thinking years ahead when we are kind of mapping out our field, this will also end up likely being dahlia space next year, and the sunflowers will get moved down further on the farm. Kind of see like this area kind of back in here we'll add the sunflowers there so that the following fall we'll be able to break ground and get different things planted in there again. For our sunflowers, we are growing the Pro-Cut Gold Lights, the plums, the standard Pro-Cut Yellows, the Pro-Cut Peaches, and the Pro-Cut White Lights. This year we didn't plant the White Nights because I don't find that they are a huge seller for us. So we've obviously opted to sell or to put the things in the ground that we are selling the most of. Now this end of the dahlia field is obviously the side that we haven't gotten to yet. So I'm going to talk a second about the process of how our dahlias get essentially strawed. The first thing is when we planted our dahlias, this year what we did was we numbered all of our dahlia rows. So this number here is row number 32. I've used the Notes app in my phone, super high tech, but we have a lot of Apple iPhone users on the farm, so it's easy to just share that. And when we went through and we planted, we marked flags down the rows of where the varieties changed and did label the varieties as they changed. But I also went through and incorporated on our notes. So if this is row 32 here behind me, we've got row 32A on this side and 32B on the other side here. This side's 32A right here, and then this side's 32B. And in my Notes app, I have listed essentially the order of the dahlias, so that if we are looking for a specific variety that we need to harvest, so for instance, if I have a request from the wholesaler for Triple ED, Linda's Baby, Boom Boom White, what have you, we can go through and find that exact variety in the field, pick the stems that we need, and then send that off to whatever client is getting them. This has been a game changer for us this year. It's also going to really help when we're digging up the dahlias, because it means whereas in years past, we have individually labeled every single dahlia in the field, this year we'll be labeling crates. Those dahlia tubers, clumps are all going to go into those crates in the fall, and then they will get dried and stored in the cooler over the winter. So this is going to make that process much easier. And then if we do happen to have, for instance, a variety planted and there's one coming up in the middle of a long stretch, we'll be able to identify that very quickly, and that is the only dahlia that is going to get flagged, like tied in our field, so that we know exactly what it is. So as we pop down kind of to the center of our field here, this is really where a lot of our cornels are planted. And it's very easy to tell because if you look right behind me, they line up with the top of the greenhouse, or the front of the greenhouse there. So we have our cornels and our cornel bronzes here. Now, this is a really good way to show you exactly what's being done in order to keep the dahlias and the weeds down. So we have created, I think they're 4-foot rows in the center here between our dahlia rows. This allows a push mower to go through and mow that center down. We hill around the dahlia plants here, so you can see where they've been beautifully weeded and they look great. We continue to hill those with a hoe throughout the season, and yes, it's a big field, it gets done though. And then once they are hilled, if you look over just slightly, we are laying straw down to protect the paths and the dahlias from the weeds. So the reason we do this, I'm gonna outright say, I do not recommend you do this method if you are growing in clay. Clay will retain moisture a lot more than our sandy soil will. So we put this down because when it is super dry, and it tends to be really dry here, normally in July, we actually had remnants of Hurricane Beryl come through here about 2 weeks ago, which is why the farm is as weedy as it is, because weeds also really, really like moisture. But normally when it's quite dry, in order to keep as much moisture as we can in the soil, adding that straw down actually creates an extra layer of both weed control and also it helps to protect the moisture levels. I don't recommend doing this if you have extremely moist or clay soil, because your dahlia tubers are more likely to rot if you do this method. For us, this works because we are growing on extremely sandy soil, and so the drainage here is actually really, really good. So it provides the moisture that they need without destroying the tubers, which is good. So 2 years ago at the Green Door Garden Plot, we started a small project of breeding and trying out some new dahlias, and this is one of the ones we've actually kept now. Successfully determined that its genetics are in fact stable, and it is a slightly open-centered dahlia, and I think she's cute. So this is, we call her Rubber Ducky because she kind of looks a little bit like a rubber ducky, but this is one of ours. So we bred this. I believe it is a cross between a white anemone variety that I no longer grow, that I lost, and Ferncliff Bliss, which is a yellow, like the light yellow dahlia with a little bit of the lavender center. So I'm really happy with that one. And then the other one that we've managed to successfully keep is Blushing Bee. She's this really adorable fuchsia color. And I personally don't mind the open centers. The bees love them, and we do actually in fact use them for design in the store. I think we're not growing dahlias to submit them to any sort of contest. So when I'm thinking about varieties that I'm going to keep, I'm thinking about whether or not I can actually use it in our designs. And that baby yellow, that really nice blush, they, one, have great vase lives, so I've kept them, and two, they're kind of cute. All right, so next I want to talk a little bit about where we cut our dahlias when we are cutting them for floristry, for market, for wholesale. And essentially the thing that everybody's going to tell you with dahlias is to not fear them, but to cut deep into them. So it's really easy to look at a dahlia plant and to want to cut here where this node is, to leave as much of the plant down as possible. But actually what I want to do is cut as deep down as I can possibly go. So I will often count 1, 2, 3, even 4 nodes into the plant here. And this is where I'm gonna take that off. Now, it doesn't actually bother me that I've cut off all of these extra bits here. What I'm gonna do is actually just trim those right off. Leaves us with only the plant and one really, really nice long, nice long dahlia stem. Now the other thing is that I will take the Boom Boom Whites already before they're fully open. So a Boom Boom White dahlia typically has more of an open center. Its petals haven't come all the way around the back yet. That's fine. I'm gonna pick them at this stage. We're gonna put them in the cooler and they will rehydrate and they'll be just fine. They may open a little bit, but this is actually where I want them when we're using them for weddings and for the wholesale market, because that is just gonna look so beautiful inside a wedding bouquet. So this is a standard like floral bucket here. These are, I don't know, like 12, 14 inches tall. You can see just how much taller than this bucket these dahlia stems are. They look absolutely great. So in the next couple weeks, as the rest of the dahlia field gets strawed out, we will be going through here yet and corralling the dahlias. So normally in the past, we have done Christine Albright's version of dahlia staking, which is like the crisscross applesauce method that we've done at the Green Door Gardens plot. This year, just because of the crazy amount of dahlia plants we have going, we are not going to be crisscrossing them, and we're just going to be corralling them around the centers of the plants so that they stay upright, as we are, you know, in the middle of a field and it gets windy. And especially as we get into August, just tends to be thunderstorm month in Southwestern Ontario. We just want to make sure that they're protected from any strong winds. So I will come back and show you what that looks like when it's done. But for now, these have all been hilled. These have all been strawed and covered, and they are honestly looking really healthy. The ones that are behind me here that we just picked from, these went in about a week to a week and a half earlier than the ones that are down at the other end of the field. And you can definitely tell the progression, like as you're going down, these ones are like quite a bit ahead. Now, the last thing that we do with our dahlias is normally we band everything in groups of 5. So when we are selling dahlias wholesale, unlike normal bunches of flowers, which tend to go out in groups of 10, dahlias go out in groups of 5. So we will elastic these and sleeve them before they go to the wholesaler, before they go to our florist clients. But first, they're going to sit in the farm cooler overnight to rehydrate now that they've been cut off the stems. I don't put any holding solution in with these, not in the small buckets anyways. As we eventually get into larger buckets, we will need to start using the holding solution. But they will get recut, they will get quick dipped, and they will spend another 12 to 24 hours in our store cooler before we use them for market bouquets. Now that I've picked these, we have, you know, a good 5 days before we have to use them, which is going to take them into the market, and they will still look this good when we pull them out of the cooler in a couple days. This variety is called Bodacious. It's funny because I think I got this variety either from like Walmart or Canadian Tire way back when we first started flower farming. I don't grow this to sell it wholesale, but my goodness, does this dahlia ever move out of the farmer's market on Saturday mornings, which is crazy because like people generally have mixed feelings about red, but like this is an absolutely massive dahlia. Like they're so beautiful. The reality is that dahlias are an absolutely huge topic, right? And dahlias aren't going to need the same thing in different areas, you know, depending whether you're in the south, in the States, or the Midwest, you may need to shade some of your dahlias. The processes that we use for growing our dahlias in, like, you know, 1/3 of an acre are obviously a little bit different than what your home gardener is going to be using to grow theirs. Landscape fabric is not it's not useful for us yet in the fields, and honestly, I think unless we're doing like 30-foot rows of things, it's landscape fabric gets to be a lot. As we kind of like move through our dahlias next year, and we're going to be weeding and hoeing them with the tractors early on, the straw is going to eventually become less and less necessary, and we may give up on supporting them all together. We'll kind of see, you know, over the next 2 years how the climate starts to change here, and just, you know, what our dahlias are going to need to survive and do well for that. Now, what I will say is that our dahlias are about 3 weeks earlier than they were last year. And if you remember last year, Southwestern Ontario had an awful year for dahlias. It was so dry in the spring. It took forever for the tubers to sprout up on the ground. We weren't getting enough rain. We couldn't irrigate fast enough. And then when August and prime dahlia time finally hit, so many local flower farmers were just their fields were drowning. There was a ton of crop loss last year in the dahlias. So this year for us is rebuilding stock, really honing in on the varieties that we know we are selling, and potentially culling out some of the ones that just don't do well, right? I'm less inclined, I think, as we're becoming more experienced, to bother with trying to find the unicorns. And it's because they cost a lot of money. It takes far too long to build up enough stock, and then trends change. So like for us, my tried and true dahlias are my Boom Boom Whites, my Cornells, my Linda's Baby, the Blizzards, the Triple EDs, you know, the ones that are in those like peach tones right now that are really popular. And we really are wanting to start focusing more on the varieties that we are selling and making money on. That's not to say that I'm not going to continue growing some miscellaneous varieties, because we do plan to reopen tuber sales again in spring 2025. And I'll have more information on that, obviously, once we get these guys all dug up in the fall and we kind of know what our stocks look like. But for now, of course, if you have any questions about dahlias, about cutting, care, planting, etc., drop those comments below. I'd love to hear from you. Thank you so much for watching. I know that it's been a while. I'm looking forward to getting going on these again now that the weeds are ish starting to go down. I hope that all of you have a great day. Thank you so much. Bye, guys.